First, we thought organizationally it was important that we show our support to our brothers and sisters at the Duquesne football program and university as they deal with their very difficult loss of a team member. We also just thought it was appropriate as members of this community that we make some statement in support of them, as I'm sure others have and will continue to do as they work through what is a difficult time. Our sympathies go out to them, and we pray for them as they move forward, not only just with dealing with what happened, but the challenges that a season presents to a football team. On usual business, I'll start first with an assessment of our last game. Like I said after the game, I thought our big people set the pace on both sides, and it can be reflected in a lot of the ways in terms of how the game unfolded. We were able to control the line of scrimmage and run the football offensively. That put us in manageable third downs. I thought that minimized the abilities of guys like Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley to control the game on possession downs and provide the wave that their defense ride. I thought we were able to protect the quarterback and virtually keep Ben upright all day because of that. On the defensive side, I thought we were able to minimize the run largely and put us in advantageous possession down situations. And then we were able to apply consistent pressure to the pocket. We talked earlier in the week about the dynamic group they had, Julio and Ridley off to a fast start, Sanu, the number of eligibles that Matt had, and we acknowledged that, pocket pressure was going to need to be an asset to our coverage. I thought the play of the game, the thing that kind of broke the game open, didn't occur on offense or defense. I thought it was the block punt by Rosie Nix. Significant play. We expect that from Rosie. We expect that from that group. We have a uniquely seasoned special teams unit with guys like Rosie and Chicolo and Tyler Matakovich and Larry Fort and others Jordan Dangerfield, that have all kind of been collectively together for an extended period of time from a special team standpoint. And so it's good for that group to deliver on that experience and that collective experience. But now we turn our attention toward division play going into Cincinnati. On the injury front, L.J. Fort has got an ankle injury. We'll see what that does to his availability at the early portions of the week and kind of let that be our guide. Edmonds has got a calf in a similar way, potentially scheduled to return to practice, and then that participation being our guide in terms of game day availability, or some guys that missed the last game. Vince Williams with his hamstring, Hay-Bay with his ankle, and Morgan Burnett with his groin. All three guys ran at least in a straight line on land in some capacity last week. We'll see what they're able to do in terms of playing football and let that be our guide in terms of availability. Now on to the Bengals. Big game for us, as it always is, divisional play. Got a unique relationship, man. Been in some hotly contested football games with these guys in recent times. They're a hot football team. They're 4-1. They found ways to win close games, and that's what good teams do. You got to respect that. They were able to come from behind a week ago against Miami and secure victory. They put together a late offensive drive against the Atlanta Falcons and secured victory. They won in week one as they came from behind to beat the Indianapolis Colts. So a lot of things for us to get charged up about. I'll talk specifically about certain phases of their outfit. I'll start first with defense. They got a new coordinator in Terrell Austin, but Terrell is not new to us. From a competition standpoint, he's a former secondary coach in Baltimore a number of years back. In recent years, he's been the defensive coordinator in Detroit. Obviously, we played against those guys last year up there in Detroit. It's interesting to see how he's utilizing the Cincinnati personnel in terms of some of the things that he likes to do schematically. So, they're familiar people. We got to deal with Dunlap. We got to deal with Geno Atkins, and obviously that's a formidable tandem. They're lighting it up right now. Geno is, I think, leading the league in sacks, and Carlos is not only what he's able to do in terms of sack production, but just the way he's able to disrupt the normal flow of the ball. He's a caused fumble guy. He's a pass batter. He's got unique length and awareness. So we got to deal with those guys, but we also got to deal with those guys within the framework of a new system and scheme that will highlight them in different ways. I think Carlos is swapping sides of the ball more than he ever has, for example, within Coach Austin's system. At the second level, they play a lot of linebackers. They've had to because of circumstance. They've been without Burfict. They have him back now. He played in a partial capacity a week ago. I imagine as he gets his legs under him, we should expect to see him every snap because it's AFC North football. On the back end, same core group of guys, particularly at the cornerback position. Denard on the inside, Fitz outside. Can't say enough about William Jackson and his quality of play at this point. He's playing really good ball, using his length and competitive nature and really getting after people and playing good at the right corner spot. They have a new free safety in Bates. Very familiar with him. You know, we were in the safety market prior to the draft, was at his pro day, had an opportunity to spend some time with him. Talented ball hawk, center fielder, got good vision, got great hands and feel for the game. I think that can be reflected already in his production. I think he leads them in interceptions. But largely when you play these guys, new coordinator or no, you can't let their front control the game, the splash plays that are able to be made up front. They got a talented group. They got big-time depth. They got new people like Sam Hubbard, Ohio State man. It's made some splash plays already for them at the early stages of the season. On the offensive side, it's about working to minimize Dalton and company. They do a nice job of finding balance, taking care of the football. They got a division of labor at the running back position. They use a stable of backs. Obviously, Mixon is their featured ball carrier, but you got to be prepared to deal with Bernard and others. They do a great job in terms of dividing that labor up. On the outside, obviously, you got to work your tail off to minimize Green's impact on the game. And notice I said minimize because he's going to impact the game. He always has and will. He's that talented a player. They're doing an awesome job of moving him around probably more than I've seen in recent years in terms of making him a tough guy to stay with and minimize, particularly situationally. He's playing inside on possession downs more than feel like I'm used to seeing. But the emergence of Tyler Boyd, particularly on possession downs, makes neutralizing Green that much more difficult. All you got to do is watch the Atlanta game. I mean, boy, Boyd dominated possession downs in that game. Not only third down, but I think he converted 2 critical fourth downs in the waning moments of that game. Not that I'm surprised by that. You know, if you're from Pittsburgh, you've seen a lot of Boyd over the years, even going back to high school football. I'm not surprised that he is really emerging, particularly as a dominant guy in that area of play. We got to work to kind of control that on possession downs, minimizing the run to help us in that effort. They got a quality special teams unit, got big-time continuity there with coordinator and players. We realize that this is AFC North football. We realize that it's on the road. We realize the significance of all of those things, and that's why we will prepare with an edge and utilize that fuel as we go into the stadium. Questions?
When you talk about preparing with an edge, the players talked about how you had maybe your best week of practice in preparation for a game, and it seemed like their performance addressed all of the points you talked about last Tuesday. How much were you pleased with the practice effort, and how much were you pleased with the points that you made here were all showed up in the game on Sunday?
You know, I never judge weeks until the conclusion of games because ultimately weeks are measured by how you perform. Oftentimes I felt good about the preparation that we've had, but ultimately preparation is defined by performance. So obviously it was a good week a week ago. Now we're focused on this element of preparation.
Mike, how often did you blitz last week, and have you done more of that this year?
Probably no more than normal, to be quite honest with you. It was effective, but probably from a ratio standpoint, no more than normal.
Similar like the past years?
Yes.
Was it more so, though, with Hilton out of the slot?
Again, nothing changed really in terms of the proportions or our personality. We were just effective.
How do you decide, whoever's doing it, the rotation outside linebacker, Mike?
We're just trying to keep all of those guys fresh. It was hot. It was a 1 o'clock game. We wanted to have all of those guys available to us and ready to go in the waning moments, but that's not anything unique. They were doing similar things with Tack McKinley and Vic Beasley.
Like after the game, you were asked about Hayden following Julio Jones around the field, and you said it was as much about how you felt about going down the line to the other cornerbacks and how they match up against various receivers. Is there similar thinking going into this week against Cincy? And just for the sake of bringing it up, Atlanta's got some pretty good wide receivers. Why did you feel good about having the matchups beyond Julio?
It's always about the trickle-down effect when you're talking about traveling with someone. Not only the physical challenges in terms of the personnel matchups, but when they're moving people, who else are they moving and what does that do? So that's always an element of the equation. If we consider it this week, it will be an element of the equation. But it's a multi-layered discussion, and it's not just about the person that you're working to neutralize.
So it's not just as easy as a correlation between Julio and A.J. Green then?
It's not, no.
Following up on that, Mike, do you think that Hayden's sort of dominant performance against Julio, that might motivate some of your other DBs to kind of step up and do better because he encouraged them? His performance may encourage them?
I just think that's part of team sport. Yeah, very much so.
How do the Bengals create mismatches for Green?
You know, they just make it tough to minimize his impact on the game in terms of knowing where he's going to be. He's not going to be on the strong side. He's not going to be on the weak side. He's not going to be on the one receiver side directionally right or left. They're going to thoughtfully move him around, and as they should. We move Antonio around in similar ways.
What emotions will there be, if any, for you and for the team going back to Cincinnati and what happened with Ryan last year?
We'll kind of know that when we get there. I'm sure there will be in some form or fashion, but hadn't spent a lot of time thinking about it to this point.
How do you think the rule changes will affect a rivalry that's known for physicality?
I don't know that it will.
Do you expect to receive a fine for your comments on Sunday?
I do not.
Were you as upset about that because of like your role in the competition committee and how much work you go into structuring the rules and what you deem to be a sound way, how they're being administered on the field? Is that the issue?
I'll say this. I said what I said after the game. I meant it. But I have no further comment. I'm choosing to move on and focus on this week's challenge.
Coach, after the game, you gave the game ball to both the offensive and defensive line. Could you elaborate more on, the importance of controlling the line of scrimmage throughout the game and moving forward?
Yeah, I did, and I kind of outlined it at the very beginning of this when I talked about we controlled the line of scrimmage in the run and in the passing game on both sides, and really the game balls were just about that.
Anyone else?
Do you have any update on Le'Veon, whether you've talked to him or anything?
I do not.
Mike, how disruptive was T.J. Watt on Sunday?
The stat line says it all, very. But again, he was not alone. It was a collective rush, and that's usually the case.
Like you talked about, you won't know the emotions until you get to Cincinnati. How challenging was it to coach through that game and to keep everybody focused on football, or is that the thing that helps everybody get through what happened last year is to focus on football?
No, that wasn't about football. That was somebody that we cared deeply about that got injured very severely. So it wasn't about utilizing it as some motivational tactic or anything of that nature. It was a very difficult thing to get through. We had a job to do in terms of winning the game, but obviously our hearts and minds were with him.
How did you get through it is what I mean.
I don't know.
Mike, is there any further concern with Boswell at all of missing almost as many extra points this year as in his career?
No, we got a lot of confidence in him. It's something that he has to work through, and he will. But this guy didn't forget how to kick. This guy's delivered for us a lot in the last few years, and I do not have amnesia in that regard. He's gotten me out of that stadium in Cincinnati a few times, and so I look forward to taking him to Cincinnati.
Mike, was Antonio Brown being sued, accused of throwing furniture out a window news to you? Is that something you can address?
I have no comment regarding that. I know nothing about it.
What steps do you have to take to make sure that AB is emotionally and physically available to give his best abilities on Field.
No comment.
Do you have any clarity on whether or not you'll keep rolling with the rotation at the cornerback position?
Not at this time, no. We got work to do in terms of looking at our practice plan this week and how guys perform and letting that be our guide in terms of those decision-making things in terms of division of labor.
Speaking of the defensive backs, you have Artie Burns and Central rotating on a regular basis, and you have Terrell Edmonds, rookie safety. You know, talk about the mindset for some of these young defensive backs to come and play at a high level.
You know, the journey sometimes is a learning process, and sometimes is on the job training. And so when you think about a guy like, you know, Edmonds, he's getting on the job training and having to deliver a winning performance at the same time. I believe he's up to the task. He's a talented young guy. He's hardworking. But at the same time, he respects his lack of experience. And you see that in terms of his preparation and the way that he leans on veteran players. The other guys are simply just trying to take advantage of reps given and trying to put their hand in the pile and be a positive contributor to our efforts. And guys like Cody and Mike Hilton and Artie Burns and Cam Sutton and others, we're getting a chance to play a lot of people. But I think those are some of the challenges and opportunities that today's NFL gives us in defensive backs particularly, because on possession downs, there's a lot of those guys employed in a lot of different ways in today's NFL.
Mike, what's your relationship like with Marvin Lewis, and what is it like to go against the same guy in the conference twice a year after year?
Man, I got a lot of respect for Coach Lewis. I got a lot of respect for Coach Harbaugh, guys that I've competed against in this division for an extended period of time. And obviously those relationships go beyond the competition in the game of football, but just largely professionally, got a lot of respect for him and the way he runs his football team and what he's been able to do over an extended period of time in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Mike, a lot of your players talked after the game on defense, better communication, and they felt like they were in the right place more often. Was that one of your better games in terms of everybody being where they were supposed to be, and is that transferable?
You know, that's what happens when you play well. When you play poorly, it's because communication is poor and people are not in position. So none of that is earth-shattering.
Were Matakevich and Ford, how did that go with them relaying the calls in with them?
I thought they did a good job. We'll continue to work that, obviously, if the opportunity presents itself. Again, both guys are probably new to that circumstance, but not new to us. And I just thought their experience in terms of being a part of the program made it less significant than maybe it appears to be.
Anything else for Coach? All right.
Thank you.